So we were talking about Bigby Presents Glory of Giants. This is a fantastic book, and it's got lots of giant, huge monsters in it, and you designed many of these, correct?
Yeah, I designed probably like 90% of it with James Wyatt providing some delightful giant critters to round out the section.
How many different monsters? Because people are probably going to be a little bit surprised just how many monsters are actually in this book.
Yeah, there's over 70 stat blocks in this section. And what I thought was going to be an initial challenge was how do we present something that has already been established, the giant families, your hill through storm, and do that multiple times and still without feeling, redundant. And what's really great, in our books like the Monster Manual and, Monsters of the Multiverse, we give you the building blocks. We give you giants, we give you demons, we give you cultists, and you can use them however you want. And in this book, we got to explore what does it mean for a giant that's like lived in a world? And how do these elements sort of overlap and interact? How does the lens of a demon lord affect a giant? In that direction, it becomes a multitude of different ways you can express the same giant and still keep it really fresh and interesting.
Are there any particular monsters in this that are your favorite?
One that I really like is the hill giant that has caught the eye of the demon lord Yunogu. They both have the commonality of eating. The hill giant completely falls into that demon lord's domain. They become a maw of Yunogu. They go through a drastic change. They become fiends. When I was designing this creature, I had like the moment in my head that I wanted to translate into the design. And the moment is when you first see this thing and it's hunched over, it's on fours, and it's just charging at you. And the big thing I wanted was the image of this huge jaw with multiple rows of teeth just dragging and scraping against the ground like a plow. It might have been promised by Yunogu that it will find cessation from this hunger that really driven it and haunted the giants. And it might even have that fulfilled. But what it also has is teeth that constantly grow, sort of like some animals. And so even if it's not hungry, it has to keep chewing on things. Ugh. And the other thing I wanted to capture in this is the moment where you think you're out of range, and then it reaches into its mouth, rips some of its teeth out, and just chucks it at you.
Yeah.
Like a barrage of daggers. And then you watch in horror as the teeth start replacing themselves immediately.
That monster in particular, it made an impression the first time I opened the book, and also I have the WizKids Mini, and of all of them, the first thing my partner Megan gravitated towards was, what is that? Yeah, that's a great monster.
Yeah.
What's another one that you really enjoy?
I really like the spellcasters that we designed in this book. There's a swath of giants that have mastered rune magic. Giants that use rune magic in this book all have runes that give them access to really powerful abilities that they can just use without limit. So players, when they're encountering one of these, has the option, do I attack the giant or do I attack the rune? Because if you destroy the rune, it shuts off their access to this magic. So it gives them a real kind of tactical choice that is different from other spellcasters.
There's a variety of different giants in this. Like we've got Hulks, we've got regular giants, we have scions, we kind of like have the whole gambit of giant culture, and it's as big as you kind of want it to be, right?
It's as big as it needs to be for a book about giants.
Yeah. Tell me about the scions. What's unique about the scions?
So the scions are the direct children of giant gods. We didn't outline a stat block for Thrym, but you can fight one of his direct children. And these are giants that have lied dormant in their world, and the world shaped around them. So this shows like a design that one could go when you're trying to make like a really big epic encounter. So in contrast to the mythic rules that we've used in books like Theros or in Fizban, where a change happens in a creature stat block that gives it access to more powerful abilities, this is actually 2 stat blocks. So this is before you even see the scion, you have to deal with the cradle that has formed around it.
And what are these cradles typically made out of?
They're made of the element that the giant is in tune with. So the giant, enormous iceberg in the distance might actually be the cradle of a scion of Thrym. And when you try to awaken the giant by like exploring the glacier or attacking it or, whatever, that awakens as this humongous titanic elemental creature that is fighting you to protect the scion, but also kind of protect the world from the scion. Because if you slay the cradle, then the scion awakens.
Right.
Now you have a second encounter that you might not have been planning for. So it's these sort of very distinct creatures that have their own, abilities and design, but are narratively really connected. That makes it, feel natural to have that sort of transition.
What was the reason for having the scions? Was it just like that kind of epic tier kind of combat?
We definitely wanted a giant that fills up the higher tier of something that you feel like could be the capstone of a big campaign.
Right.
Something that we've had, with ancient dragons or, the great worms that were in Fizbans. So we were always planning on some kind of primordial giant, a giant that's bigger and more powerful than the giants before. But it was during development and design and working with and collaboration that we came to the idea that these are giants that are directly related to the giant gods. They are so powerful that even in their slumber, they sort of infuse the land and the world around them with this magical power that causes it to act even without their knowing.
It's kind of hard to express just how many different monsters and different giants are in this. It's like a shocking amount. And the variety of it is shocking because we have death giants. We have giants that are influenced by like aberrations or the outer planes or the inner planes or elements out there. And then we have the hulks as well.
The hulks are what happens when giants embrace the elemental nature in them and have kind of descended into these elemental beings rather than what you know them as today. We got to do some really, really cool art that kind of drives that point. They still look like the giant that they descended from, but they're barely keeping it together.
They've become more of that element than an actual giant.
Yeah.
They're like in that kind of transition.
Yeah, they become a elemental that is still kind of trying to retain their giantness.
There's also a lot of there's Ettins in this. The Ceramorph Ettin is disturbed. I bet we've got Formians. This is a deep dive into just giants in general.
What giant book would be complete without a few trolls in there too?
Yes.
Speaking of one of favorites, one of my favorites is also the Troll Amalgam.
It's the artwork for that is exactly what you think it's going to be.
It's exactly what it should be.
Yeah.
This is one of those kind of things where trolls already had the lenses of mutations. How does the world or other creatures affect a troll? And how does that troll kind of respond to it, right? What happens when a bunch of trolls get together?
Yes.
And they're all start regenerating at the same time, either due to some weird ritual a dark wizard is coming up with, or maybe they hear the call of the god Vabrak, and all kind of
Congeal?
coalesce together.
Coalesce, yeah.
You have a big roly-poly rubber green mass of limbs and teeth and eyes, and all of them are still trolls. So, every face is kind of fighting to be the main head, basically. It's so fun getting to design monsters, especially when you get to design monsters like this, and you get to write, oh yeah, if it wants, it can just rip one of its limbs off and throw it at you, and that limb will try to wrap around you and hold you down. But be careful, because if that limb stays around long enough, it'll just regenerate into another troll, maybe.
We've also got some weird things like giant ticks. We have giant animals. We have bag jelly. We have kind of like all the kind of weird creatures that come along with it.
Yeah, the thing that's really cool about giants is that they're a creature that have been around since ancient times. They have a culture, and they're intelligent. They've made things, and things have happened in sort of in response to them, right? Just like how ticks have evolved to, feed on deer or anything else that passes by. Why wouldn't there be a parasitic creature that has tasted giant blood and really likes the taste of it? Why wouldn't they forge a golem that is of their appropriate size,
Yeah,
and infuse it with runes to help them fight ancient foes like dragons?
there's a horrific example of like one that is like fallen enemies of a giant that was a giant that was sewn all together to make a golem.
Yeah, the flesh colossus.
Yeah, right.
A real sort of desperate times, desperate measures creature,
Right.
where the giants took in their fallen foes or comrades, and stretched it over a giant adamantian skeleton to make another construct creature that continues the fight for well beyond their life.
The Death Knights are a thing now as well, correct?
Yeah, we've also reintroduced the death giants from previous editions into this book. These giants are those who have come into the service of the Raven Queen. We have two death giants. We have, your regular death giant, your baseline death giant, but also one that has mastered rune magic, and specifically the death rune. These death giants have carved their rune on skulls that they have on their person. And so seeing the souls of the dead sort of seep through the eye sockets and floating around them while they carry a big staff with a necrotic scythe blade, shining through, like, it creates a really cool, intimidating presence.
Any other favorites that stood out?
I really like the giants that have aligned themselves with the evil elemental cults, the giants that have embraced undeath, like the fire gaunt, a fire giant that was slain, maybe betrayed, and has risen as a vengeful spirit. All these fires just gouts out of it in any way the DM wants to describe it, from like a wound in its stomach or in its legs to just all from its face, like a screaming spirit of vengeance. But we also have Fomorians from before the time they become the Fomorians that we know them as, unfallen Fomorians. These regal giants that are interested in magic more than, treasure or might. A different picture of what could have been if they didn't fall under the promises of conquest of the Feywild and weren't banished to the strange magics of the Underdark.